Today we're going to talk about our next transformation, and it is called a reflection. All right, let's recall that a reflection happens when we flip something over a line. Okay, and the thing that's created is a mirror image. Let's consider the following pre-image. PQRS, and I'm just going to write the ordered pairs for that image, that pre-image. So P right now is -2, 3. Q is -2, 1. R is -3, 1. And S is -3, 5. If I flip over this x-axis, okay, well, right now all of these x's are going to stay the same, okay, because looking at Q is 1 above the x-axis right now. If I flip that over the x-axis, it will be 1 below the x-axis. Now I have Q prime. So my x value stays the same there. So I just did Q first, and that's okay. So I'm at -2, -1. So looking down at the chart down here, my x values are going to stay the same, and my y values are flipped. So let's fill in the rest of this. -2, -3 for P prime. So let's write that guy in. P prime. R prime is going to be -3, -1. So -3, -1. That's R prime. And S prime is going to be -3, -5. So let's count 2, 3, 4, 5. That's S prime, and draw my shape. And good enough. That is going to be my new image. Now, I can also go across the y-axis. Again, we're starting with the original pre-image, PQRS, so I'm just staying with the original points. I'm going to redraw those or rewrite those back in, PQRS. So starting back at the original pre-image. Okay, now we're going to reflect across the y-axis. Right now, we'll look at point P to start. P is 2 to the left of the y-axis. P prime will be 2 to the right. So looking at that ordered pair, it now becomes +2, 3. So the sign on my x changes, and the sign on my y stays the same. So let's go ahead and fill in the rest of these. 2, 1. So I've got Q prime. R prime would be now 3 to the right of my y-axis. So I've got 3, 1. And S prime will be +3, 5. 5. That's S prime. And I'm just drawing in my shape, and there we have it. You can assume if we do both at once, they will both negate. So based on our previous two examples, we don't have to do this third one. They're both going to be the opposite sign if we did them both at one time. Next example, we're going to flip the following triangle, JKL, over the x-axis again. Okay? Even though it lies on the x-axis, we can still flip this pre-image over the x-axis. Let's look at K. Okay, point K is 2 below the x-axis right now, so we always reference the point to our reflection line. So right now it's 2 below. It is going to end up 2 above. So that's going to be K prime. Right now L is still 2 below our flip line, which is the x-axis. So that's going to end up 2 above that flip line. And J is 3 above right now, so J prime will be 3 below. And if I draw this shape, I have created something that is flipped over the x-axis. Got our next example, triangle ABC reflected over the y-axis this time. Let's look at point A. Currently A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left of my flip line. So we're going to go in the opposite direction, the same number of units. So A prime is going to be 5 to the right. Right now B is 5 to the left, or excuse me, 3 to the left. So B prime will end up 3 to the right of that flip line. Okay, complete opposite direction of the line. And C is 1 unit directly left. So C prime will be 1 unit directly right. And we can draw our shape. This example asks us to describe the reflection of triangle RQS. So we're up in quadrant 2 right now, and it's hard to tell. It ends up in a completely opposite quadrant. So what I would do is I would write all of my ordered pairs and see where they started and where they ended. So R right now is at -2, comma 5. Q is at 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, 2, and S is at -2, 1. Okay, when I do the reflection, R prime ends up at let's see, +2, -5. Okay, Q prime ends up at 5, -2, and S prime ends up at 2, -1. Okay, so my reflection looks like the X switches signs and the Y also switches signs. So that means we're flipping across both the X and the Y axis. So the previous two examples, or a couple examples, we were reflecting over an axis, but that's not always going to be the case. Let's consider the example where we're reflecting triangle ABC over the line y equals x. Well, we need to remember from Algebra 1 what the line y equals x looks like. Okay? If we put this in the slope-intercept form, y equals, okay, the coefficient on x right now is 1. Okay, so it tells me my slope is up 1 and to the right 1. And right now nothing's being added at the end, so the number we use for nothing is 0. So that's my y-intercept. I have a slope and a y-intercept. Let's go ahead and graph our line. Well, the y-intercept is 0. It's the origin. My slope is up 1 from the origin and right 1. So up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Okay, and to exhaust the line the best I can, I'm going to go in the other direction as well. So I'm going to just do my best to draw our line here. Okay, and we're going to reflect triangle ABC over that line. So if we think about when we were reflecting across an axis, okay, we were counting exactly how many units it was away from that line. Well, if we look at point C right now, okay, if I go directly over to my line of reflection, I'm about a half of a box diagonally away from my line y equals x. So C prime is going to be the exact distance away in the other direction. So if I go in the other direction here, now I have C prime. Another way to think about this is if I were to go, I'm going to grab a different color here, if I were to go exactly 1 unit right to this line, this means I have to go exactly 1 unit down to get to C prime. So there's a couple different ways to think about this. Let's look at point B. Okay, point B is out here. Okay, and if I count to my line, I'm exactly 1 diagonal unit, 2 diagonal units, and 3 diagonal units away. So I have to count the same number in the opposite direction to find B prime. Same with A prime. Okay, I am 1, 2, 3.5 units away, so I need to count the same in the opposite direction and label that A prime. And you can think about it however, whatever makes sense to you. If I were to, again, go back to this last point A, okay, I was exactly 3.5 diagonal units away, but if I were to count straight up from my line of reflection, and again, I'm going to grab a different color here, I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units straight up. So I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units to the right of my line in order to be reflected in the correct position. And here's our last example. We're going to reflect triangle ABC over the line x equals -2. First, I have to create the line x equals -2. Okay. So that means for all y values, so when y is 1, x is -2. When y is 5, x is -2. So it's going to create a vertical line. Gotta be careful with drawing this. Be as close as I can. Okay, now x is always -2 all along that line. So if I refer this back to what axis this looks like, it looks a lot like the y-axis. So I'm going to count how many units away each of these points are in order to complete this transformation or this reflection. So right now, looking at point A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units to the right of my line x equals -2. So I need to count 7 units to the left and label A prime. And same thing, we'll go to C next. C is here. C is 4 units to the right. So C prime will be 4 to the left. And B is 5, 6, 7, 8 to the right. So we will end up 8 to the left of our line. I had to count there. Okay, B prime. And we can draw our shape. And there you have it. There's our last reflection.